Our colleague, Scott Simon, the host of Weekend Edition here at NPR, actually wrote a book with Tony Bennett, which came out in 2016 when Bennett was just turning 90. It's called Just Getting Started, and Scott is with us to tell us more about it. Scott, welcome. Thank you for joining us, and I'm so sorry for the loss of your friend.
Yeah, it's rough around here. But thank you.
So first of all, how did it come about that you wrote a book together?
You know, he liked what I'd written. My parents, as you know, from a show business background, not a lot of distinction. My mother was a showgirl. My father was a comedian. He liked the way I'd written in previous books about show business. He'd played a couple of the same places my parents did. He asked me to do this book with him of some of his memories of people in show business. And I remember having lunch in New York, and I said, look, it sounds wonderful. I love you, but I don't know about being a co-writer on anything. And Tony said to me, forgive my bad imitation, yeah, you know, kid, I had the same reaction. The only time I ever took second billing in my life was with Frank Sinatra and Duke Ellington. Oh. And I said, okay. You've convinced me.
Right. So what did he tell you about his signature piece, I Left My Heart in San Francisco?
He had never so much as seen a cable car when he saw the song. He was playing in Hot Springs, Arkansas, a nightclub. His longtime pianist, Ralph Sharon, had the sheet music in a shirt drawer. It had been written in the early 50s by George Corey and Douglas Cross for Clamma Mae Turner, who'd been a soprano at the San Francisco Opera. They took it out one night after their show in Hot Springs. The bartender said, that's a great song. If you record that, I'll buy the first copy. They reached San Francisco on their nightclub tour. They recorded it a few weeks later. It was on the flip side of Once Upon a Time, which was a song from the musical The All-American. And, of course, it became one of the all-time hits of American popular music.
Do you feel up to talking more about him? I know it's a tough day for you. Can we keep going?
Oh, you know, he was what I will just never forget the blessing I had in my life to sit with him in his artist studio, as a matter of fact, because he became a very serious painter, and just listening to him tell story after story. And his stories never really had a villain. He only told me the stories about people he liked and experiences he treasured and savored. And I remember leaving his studio every day after we'd worked together and think, boy, that's a lesson in life in and of itself, isn't it?
One of the things that I think people who are, let me just put it this way, of a different generation understand about him or know about him is that he collaborated with artists from very different eras and with very different genres. And of course, Lady Gaga is one that immediately comes to mind.
And Amy Winehouse, whom he worshipped and felt so bad when she left us, particularly under such tragic circumstances. He had a quality of excellence and taste and craftsmanship and professionalism that I think communicated across generational lines. And that's what so many people treasured about him. And as he used to say to me all the time, talking about the kind of songs that he said, it's all classical music.
Interesting.
These are songs that we grew up with, that we hear, that are familiar points of references in our life. And I think nobody injected them with the kind of humanity and quality that Tony had in his voice, which, by the way, he always said was the voice of his father, who unfortunately died when Tony was 9 or 10. And
that's the kind of thing that could make a man bitter. And I wanted to hear more about, you talked about his kind of fundamental kind of kindness and decency and appreciation for not just for other artists, but for other people. Can you just talk a little bit